you there, doom-scrolling creepy stories at whatever ungodly hour it is where you are. Do me a favor. Drop your location in the comments. Let me know what time you're watching. And hey, if you like stories that crawl under your skin like cold mist on bare skin, hit that like and subscribe. Because tonight, you might need company. All right, let's go. I wasn't supposed to end up in Gray Harbor. It wasn't the kind of town you ended up in. It was the kind of place you left. Fast, but after the accident. After that night in the city, the sirens, the glass, the blood, the transfer to some no-name coastal town sounded merciful. Somewhere quiet, slow. A place where nothing happened. I should have known better. The first thing I noticed was the fog. It clung to everything. Thick, cold, heavy. It rolled in from the bay every night, swallowing streets, muffling sounds. There weren't any birds. Not a seagull, not a pigeon, not a goddamn sparrow. I didn't realize how wrong that was until later. My first night on shift, the call came in at 1:12 a.m. Possible animal attack. Old logging road, North Sector. Animal attack. Except no one here owned dogs, and no one hunted anymore. I drove alone. My partner called out sick. I remember the way the mist wrapped around the ambulance headlights like tendrils. I kept the radio low. The dispatcher sounded shaky. When I got there, I almost turned around. The man was lying halfway out of his truck, which had smashed into a tree. His torso was shredded, flesh hanging in long strips, blood pooled thick and dark in the grass. But it was the marks that stopped me cold. Not bites, not scratches, claw marks, massive ones. 4 long gouges, deep enough to carve through bone, spaced like the talons of a giant bird. And no tracks, no blood trail leading away. Just the mist. I called it in, but the radio crackled uselessly. Dead air. Then, from the trees, I heard it. A rustle of wings. Huge wings. I caught the edge of a shadow. Something impossibly big, vanishing into the mist. The sound of air moving around it was so wrong. Heavy, ancient. I stood there, frozen, the fog thickening. A low, distant sound rang through the trees. A bell. A single, mournful toll. There was no church for miles. I left the body, got in the rig, and drove like hell. When I got back to the station, no one believed me. One old mechanic, Benny, gave me a long, pitying look. "You saw it," he said, "didn't you?" I didn't answer, but yeah, I saw it. And whatever it wasn't done with me yet. The town that forgot. Ever notice how small towns have a weird collective amnesia? Everyone knows something, but no one talks about it. Like the missing kids, or the fire no one mentions, or the stretch of forest where even the dogs refuse to walk. Gray Harbor was like that. The morning after the attack, I expected sirens, roadblocks, police tape. Nothing. At the diner, old Benny sat in his usual booth, sipping black coffee, grease-stained fingers trembling. The other regulars? Silent. They weren't looking at the paper. They weren't on their phones. They were watching the windows, like they expected something to land on the roof. I slid into the booth across from Benny. "You said I saw it," I told him. "What is it?" He didn't answer, just slid a faded, water-damaged photograph across the table. It showed a group of men in front of the old lumber mill, axes in hand, and behind them, nailed to the wall, was something massive, winged, dead, or so they'd thought. The date on the back said 1903. I wanted to laugh, tell him it was a trick of the light, a hoax, but my throat was too dry. Benny just grunted. They used to ring the bell when it came, only thing that drove it off. That's why it still rings. Town lets it happen. Easier than fighting. Fighting what? His eyes, pale and bloodshot, met mine. The griffin. Now, before you check out thinking of noble, golden, medieval beasts perched on castle spires. No, this wasn't that. Benny said it was older than the stories. Bigger, meaner. A creature that wasn't a myth so much as a leftover. A thing that should have gone extinct, but didn't. I left the diner with the photo stuffed in my jacket pocket. That night, fog rolled in faster than usual. By midnight, the town was so silent, you could hear your own pulse. I stayed inside until I heard it. The bell. One long, low toll. Then a second. And then the scratching at my roof. Not birds, something heavier. Claws against old shingles. I killed the lights, heart pounding. Then my phone buzzed. A message. No name. Just a number. You shouldn't have asked, city boy. And outside, in the fog, something laughed. A low rasping sound, like wings unfolding. And I knew I wasn't meant to leave Gray Harbor. The ones who know. I didn't sleep. Not because of the text. Not even because of the thing on my roof. Because at 3:27 a.m., right as the town bell tolled again, my front porch light flickered on. And someone was standing there. A woman, maybe late 50s, stringy gray hair, face like a storm-beaten cliff. She didn't knock, didn't speak, just stared through the window like I was a fish in a bowl. When I finally opened the door, against every sane instinct, she spoke one word, "Come." The street was empty. Not a single porch light, not a single open curtain. The fog clung to the ground like a wet sheet. She led me to the church. The ancient, crumbling stone one, up on the hill, where the bell tower loomed over the town, like a skeletal finger. Inside, a dozen others waited. People I recognized from the diner, the market, the gas station. No one spoke. The old woman gestured to a seat. I sat. Then she spoke. "You saw it." I opened my mouth, but there was no point lying. I nodded. "Then you're marked. It knows you now." Another man, the butcher, I think, added, "If you leave, it follows." I demanded answers. That's when they told me the deal. The griffin wasn't a monster. It was a pact, a thing the town made peace with generations ago. Back when the old lumber camps nearly starved, when disease swept the coast, a creature came from the cliffs, demanded a sacrifice, the firstborn of the town's founding families, once a decade. In exchange, no famine, no plague, no war would touch them. And it worked. Every storm missed Gray Harbor. Every war skipped it. Even during the Great Depression, no one starved. But the price never changed. And last week, for the first time in 90 years, someone broke the deal. The girl from the hardware store. She ran. Now the griffin was hunting again. And I wasn't part of this town. I wasn't bound by their silence. But I'd seen it, which meant it could take me too. And worse. They wouldn't stop it. They wouldn't help me. They were already looking at me like dead meat. What the fog hides. I didn't go home. I sat in that church pew long after the others left, staring at the rotting rafters, the faded paintings of saints whose eyes seemed to follow me no matter where I moved. The old woman, her name was Mags, apparently, left a single lantern burning and a warning. Stay indoors after dark. Don't speak its name. Don't look up if you hear the wings. Yeah, sure, Mags. Real helpful. The problem was, I had no plan. No friends in this town. And a creature that apparently punched your soul's clock if you so much as made eye contact. I left at dawn. The streets were empty. Fog still hung low over the ground, like it didn't want to leave either. Everything about Gray Harbor felt wrong, like the place wasn't built for people anymore. I headed for the only person I trusted, an old guy named Elias, who ran the boat rental shop. He looked like every grumpy ex-fisherman stereotype you've ever seen. Rumor was he'd lost his wife in '78 to something big with feathers. I found him fixing a net, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking. "Saw it, didn't you?" he rasped, without looking up. I nodded. "You'll hear it tonight. You always do the second time." Second time? Elias tossed a bundle of old maps onto the counter. It doesn't just hunt, it remembers. And once it marks you, it likes to play. He showed me the cliffs outside town. An old abandoned watchtower, built in the 1800s. That's where it roosts. No one's been up there in decades. I asked why no one burned it down. He laughed, not kindly. "You don't kill what owns you, son. You just pray it forgets your name." Before I left, Elias handed me a tattered journal, pages yellowed and half missing. Scrawled inside, "The griffin takes what it's owed. It leaves feathers on the windowsill. If you wake to find one, it's already too late." I didn't want to believe it, but there was one on my pillow when I got back. A single black feather, still warm. And then the sound. Wing beats, massive, slow, somewhere above the house. The floorboards shook. I forced myself not to look up, not to breathe. And the voice, a woman's but not, croaked from the shadows. Mine. The roost. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on my mattress, knees pulled to my chest like a terrified 12-year-old, and waited for dawn. But dawn never really comes properly in Gray Harbor. The sky just turns from black to a sickly ash gray, the fog hanging low like it's waiting for something to die. I made a decision. If this thing wanted me, it could have me, but on my terms. So I packed a flashlight, a rusted flare gun I found in Elias's shop, and a bottle of whiskey that tasted like gasoline. I headed for the cliffs. It's strange how quiet a cursed town can be. No birds, no dogs barking, not even the sea making a sound. The watchtower stood like a black tooth against the sky, half swallowed by the mist. And as I climbed the rotten steps, I could feel something watching. Every creak of wood felt like it would give under my weight. At the top, the room opened into a wide, circular chamber. Walls streaked with age, old iron brackets still clinging to the stone. In the middle of the room was a nest. Not a quaint pile of twigs, a nest made of rusted metal, bones, driftwood, and scraps of stained fabric, and feathers. So many feathers, all inky black, some the size of my forearm. And then I saw it. The griffin. It wasn't what I expected. No shining gold or proud mythic beast. This thing looked ancient, like it had molted away its divinity a century ago. A skeletal lion's body, its wings torn and frayed, head like a predator bird's skull, with black glass eyes that didn't blink. It perched on a broken beam, staring. And then it spoke. Not aloud, inside my head. "Why do you climb to your death, little thing?" I lifted the flare gun. My hand shook. "Because I'm done waiting," I whispered, and then it leapt. The room exploded with movement, wings shattering the air, the wind shrieking like a banshee as it dove for me. I fired. A flare burst into searing crimson light, and in the light, I saw them. Dozens of faces. Faces of the lost, eyes wide in terror, tracked inside the nest like flies in amber, their mouths moving silently. One was Mags, another was Elias. They weren't dead, not yet. And the griffin laughed. "You think you can burn away what belongs to me?" I bolted for the stairs as the nest ignited. The ancient wood caught fast, smoke thick and acrid. The griffin gave an unholy scream, wings slamming against the walls as fire clawed toward the rafters. I didn't stop running. Outside, the sky cracked open with thunder, and then silence. No wings, no voices, just fog. The toll-keeper's debt. I stumbled down the cliffs, lungs clawing for air. The flames behind me lit the mist a dirty orange. The tower a collapsing skeleton, but I should have known better. Things like that don't burn so easy. The fog thickened around me, cold as grave water. And from somewhere, nowhere, I heard it again. That voice, slithering through the marrow of my skull. You cannot run from inheritance you don't understand. I almost laughed. Inheritance? I'm a nobody. A cashier at a corner mart with bad credit and worse instincts. But then, through the veil, something materialized. The old toll keeper. Every town like this has one. An old bastard who lives too long, knows too much, and won't tell you a thing until it's already too late. Ours was a man named Harlan Crow, part lighthouse keeper, part gravedigger, part myth. He was waiting at the shore. His skin looked like cracked parchment, one eye clouded, the other sharp as a blade. In his hand, a rusted lantern guttered against the fog. It wasn't meant to pick you, Harlan said, voice like dry leaves. I didn't sign up for this, I hissed. None of us did. He gestured to the water, and there, on the tide, boats, dozens of them, empty vessels, drifting silently toward shore. Each carried a passenger, or what was left of them. Faces pale, eyes hollow, clothes tattered and soaked with brine. The lost. Every generation, one is marked to bear the griffin's notice, Harlan murmured. To hold its hunger at bay, it takes the restless, the forgotten, the debtors, the nameless. You were supposed to be beneath its notice. I shook my head. Why me? Because something woke it. His gaze flicked back toward the burning tower, and now it's hunting out of season. The griffin wasn't feeding on criminals, or sinners, or the wicked. It was taking anyone, and worse, it was building something. A nest. For what? Harlan lifted the lantern and pressed it into my hands. If you won't run, you'll need this. What is it? Hope. He grinned, all teeth and pity, or the illusion of it. Behind us, the flames died with a final shudder, and something vast stirred in the clouds, the nest of names. I followed Harlan through the choking fog, the flickering lantern barely holding back the dark. The shore was alive, with sounds that didn't belong. Flapping wings, too large to be birds. Voices speaking in reverse. The slither of something heavy, moving just out of sight. We reached the old quarry at the edge of town. A place people forgot existed, except for when they needed somewhere to dump what they wanted lost. Tonight, it was worse. At the center of the pit was a massive tangle of driftwood, wire, bone, and rusted metal. A nest, the size of a small house. And inside it, a shape. The griffin. Not the clean, gilded statues from storybooks. This thing looked born from ancient nightmares. Matted feathers caked in soot. A lion's body scarred and stitched from battles it never lost. And eyes like cracked obsidian. Its wings were vast, each feather a shadow that seemed to bend light. But what froze my blood was the faces, woven into the nest. Pale, hollow-eyed faces, People I recognized. My manager, the old woman from 3C, the mailman. They were part of it now. Their mouths opened in unison. You should have let it sleep. Harlan stepped forward. You came for a toll, beast, he called. But this debt's not hers to pay. The griffin lowered its head, its beak inches from Harlan's face. And then it spoke. Not in words, but 1,000 memories at once. A flood of grief, hunger, loss, and something older than language. I dropped to my knees, skull splitting, blood at my nose. Run! Harlan's voice was weak now, but I didn't. I grabbed the lantern and hurled it at the nest. The flames caught instantly, and the griffin screamed, a sound that wasn't a roar or a shriek, but something in between. A tearing, sky-rending wail that scattered the fog like shredded paper. Faces howled as fire devoured them, but in the light, something crawled out of the nest. A child, eyes milky, skin gray, but unmistakably alive. That's why it hunted, Harlan whispered as his old heart finally gave out. To protect the last of its line. The griffin crumbled, its monstrous form breaking like brittle glass in the blaze, and the fog began to lift. Ashes. Remember, the quarry was still smoldering when dawn broke. I stood at the edge, the wind carrying away the last of the ash and burnt bone. The child, if you could call it that, was gone, vanished sometime between the last dying ember and the first ray of sunlight. No one else in town spoke of the fog after that. The missing stayed missing. Harlan's apartment was cleaned out within a week, like he'd never existed. And the quarry? It got fenced up, condemned. A no trespassing sign hung crookedly by a single nail, flapping in the breeze like a limp flag of surrender. But you can feel it, even now. That strange weight in the air some nights. A hush in the trees when the wind should move them. A shadow overhead when no bird is in the sky. I left town 6 months later. Couldn't stand the eyes. The way people looked at me like they were waiting for something to happen. Like I'd brought it back with me. And maybe I did. The dreams started soon after. A nest made of voices. A name I don't remember, but wake up choking on. A creature sitting at the end of my bed, too heavy for the floorboards. I moved cities, changed my number, ditched my old clothes, my old job, my old life. But some debts don't die in fire. And tonight, I felt it again. A flutter of enormous wings somewhere beyond the walls. A flicker of gold eyes in my window, which is why I'm telling you this now. Not for sympathy, not for forgiveness, but because when you hear that scratching at your window tonight, and you will, you'll know it's not the wind. It's come to roost, and this time it remembers.